Hello, everybody. Looks like we're live here. So, welcome to another Sunday Live number 44. Let me check everything, make sure we're good. So, I'm also, maybe I've mentioned before, I'm bringing out the live stream here again. So, live stream or podcast, rather. So I'm going to hang out a little bit, talk about some tunes, talk about some ideas I have for what's coming up, and play around a little bit. All right, so a couple kind of cool things I just want to mention right here from the beginning. So I released a bit of a video on Alone Together, and so hopefully you're enjoying that. Seems like a lot of folks have watched it, getting pretty good amount of views. And I have some plans to maybe talk about some ways to harmonize some of those melody notes. So we'll see how that goes. I started creating some slides and things, so so I might do a little bit of that. We'll see how this week progresses. I also like to do a melody video on My One and Only Love. So we featured that tune and this past week, analyzed it and talked about that. I also wanted to mention or talk a little bit today about Pat Martino, who passed away. I believe it was on Monday. It's past Monday. So a really big name for guitarists and jazz fans. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about him, and I really like the way he thought about or approached the guitar. Sometimes in some videos he would mention it, um, as sort of like another like toy or something, um, in a sense that you kind of play with it, and it's sort of like a puzzle in a lot of respects, or at least that's how I'm perceiving what he said. Um, and so I really like that perspective on things. So to take it and play with it. I mean, we do play guitar. But to take it and think about exploring it and learning more, it's kind of, um, I think, kind of a good perspective on it. Um, so let me share a little bit. Maybe before I go and talk about him too much, I'll talk about, or not too much, but I mean, before I get to that part of things, maybe what I'll do is talk a little bit about this. I've actually talked about this in the past a couple of times, but I was researching a little bit more about him, and I found some more things that are kind of similar. So let's take this concept here. Let's say we have a an augmented triad. So sometimes what he would talk about and what he might convey was taking some symmetry, something that was kind of symmetric in nature, and then using that. I think he used the language of parent groupings. But you take something like this. Okay, let's say we have C augmented triad, or the kind of cool thing about this is you have kind of a C augmented, E augmented, G sharp augmented. Um, so you can think in terms of those three different root notes, or just think of them as inversions that all look the same, kind of have that same contour. So then you'd say, take a note and lower it. So a lot of times I get this kind of question like, why would you do this and what does it matter? um, which are valid questions. But so I guess maybe I'll talk about that first. Part of it is just like exploring the phenomenon of music and sound. And so just doing it for the sake of doing it, I guess you could say. But also, we're going to find three tonal centers here and find their relative major and minor. So it might help you gain some insights. We'll see. So let's say we take this top note, lower it a half step, and then we get a root position C major triad. See where I am here. Okay, so let's go back to that augmented triad. So keep in mind that C major that we just talked about, not this one, but take this note and bump it up a half step. And we get an A minor triad in first inversion. So you get a relative major, a relative minor, and a key of no sharps, no flats. All from, start this as a starting point, and then you're kind of exploring it from there. Let's take this other note. I'll lower it a half step, keep the other notes just like we did before. So we get A flat major, first inversion. I'm borrowing these two on the fourth fret, first two strings, and then second finger on the third string, fifth fret. We get A flat major, first inversion. So let's go back to that augmented triad. So let's take the second string here and bump that up a half step, keep the other notes. F minor triad, second inversion. Okay. So those are the relative major and the relative minor in the key of four flats. Right? So that's kind of cool, right? Back to the augmented triad. So we'll try one more of these. Right? So we take third string here, lower that a half step. E major, second inversion. Go back. Let's say we raise this low note up a half step, keep the other ones. We get a root position C sharp minor. So we get E and C sharp minor. Those are both key of 4 sharps, the relative major and relative minor. So that's a pretty cool, like, little phenomenon there where you get um, you get all the inversions of triads. You get major and minor triads, and also you kind of see the get to see the relative minor and major of each one. So um, pretty kind of cool um, little thing that you could try out. You could do that um, in different spots all over the neck. Take augmented triads all over the place. Actually, if you go, you only get what 4 of these before they start repeating again. So that's kind of cool. You could do that on 4 augmented triads and just go through that as an exercise and have like every triad and an inversion, at least major and minor, well, and augmented, right? So you could, do different string groups too. So that's pretty cool. And then this book I was reading earlier, which was, what was it? Creative. It's actually in the description here. So, look, Creative Force. There's a book 1 and 2. I put book 1 in the description. It is an affiliate link. So he does kind of a similar. So I was reading that this morning as I was preparing for this talk, and I thought, oh yeah. Okay, so he talks about that with the diminished seventh. And oh, thanks, John, for writing in. Thanks for watching. So he talks about the diminished seventh. So I'm going to talk about this in a minute and give you a couple examples. Where he talks about this as like a parent group. So you take a dominant 7th chord, which is another symmetrical kind of thing. And kind of works it out. So we might do something similar. There we get a 4 note, 4 note groups, but so another tune I've been thinking about doing. So the last couple weeks we did Girl Talk, Alone Together, and then My One and Only Love. I haven't done a melody video on that, but hopefully we'll get that going pretty soon. I've had a couple of pretty busy weeks, maybe even a few busy weeks. So it's been a little bit. I've had a little bit less coming out than I like, but I have actually committed like a good amount of time that I've squared away for some of these member videos. So I have been doing quite a lot of that. So I've been thinking about Along Came Betty, because I've been thinking about Pat Martino this week, obviously, because of the news of his passing, and so I've been thinking about some of his repertoire. He wrote a lot of tunes. He played like Along Came Betty. So Along Came Betty is this one I've been kind of playing around with the different sections of it, which is what I've been kind of playing around with so far here on the live stream. So Along Came Betty is another tune that I've thought about maybe featuring this week, and I think I have done a video on that. I think it's been a while, but I think I did do at least one video on that, probably more. But it's kind of cool changes. We get this B flat minor 7, and then this bit of a 2-5 there. So we can, improvising on that. Getting that shift happening. So then it goes to A major, A flat 7. I'm gonna try to kind of refresh my memory on that a little bit. That's sort of a tough passage to improvise, maybe too. So. So then it kind of starts this other pattern there. So here. Right, so G major. Yeah. So this is something that I've been talking about a little bit too, which is in private lessons and also just on YouTube in general, is this idea of the third and the 7. The third and the 7 of a dominant 7th chord is a tritone interval, which is another symmetry in music, or another spot where the inverse is the same interval, right, as your first motion. So if you can kind of interchange the root note, right? So this kind of you might oftentimes we think of D7 going to G major, but here we have A flat 7. So that's a similar kind of phenomenon too there. Hi, Cyan. Yeah, good to see you back. So there, we can kind of think about the one thing I've been working on emphasizing for my own benefit too, is the idea of working on like one single change or two chords. So one thing you might do as far as practicing, which I do as well, is kind of go back and forth between two chords, which would give us one change, right? So we might think, okay, this is kind of maybe a tough change there. So that's something we could just work on isolating that, going back and forth, because kind of danger is trying to, well, let's say you get into like having only like one solution or one thing to say on a certain change, and then that can limit you. So if you can play in on different strings, different positions, playing that same change, just try to do it over the whole range of the instrument. That can be a really um, useful and a worthwhile thing to do is to practice one change, two chords, and you can do that with um, chord voicings. You can do that with melodic playing. You can do that with a lot of different kinds of things. So let's check out a little bit about Pat Martino. And if you know a lot about Pat Martino, welcome your comments or if you have any questions. So let's check him out a little bit. So Pat Martino, and I had a student who went to see him. I think it was like 3 years ago, or maybe more. Um, I think Joey DeFrancesco was playing with him. Um, so I don't think I've ever seen him live. I wish I had, especially now. But I've listened to a lot of him. So, oh, thanks, John. So, born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So many great jazz players have come from there, Philadelphia. Um, born in 1944. Um, his playing, if I were to kind of characterize it just as first impressions, thing I would say is that you kind of get this very continuous um, group of notes that are kind of rapid fire. On a technical point of view, I really admire, obviously his lines and everything. We have done a little bit of analysis on his playing. I think we did did an analysis on his Just Friends, one of his recordings there. That's from the Jazz Guitar Omni book, if you're looking for that. But the picking hand, just really fluid and steady, and that's one aspect of playing that I admire. Just aside from his overall musicianship and everything. So there's a really interesting story about him. It's really unfortunate, but it is very interesting that he had a medical issue. It looks like 1980. So he had like a seizure and suffered from amnesia. And as far as I understand, which is what they talk about here too, is that he had like no recollection of even like being a guitar player or even like how to play the guitar. So from what I understand, he had to like completely reteach himself how to do it. So that's just an incredible thing to overcome, and this was his, profession. So I mean, how devastating is that, and and so that's just such a big thing, for him to overcome that, and then unfortunately, the last I think couple of years of his life, he had some health problems, respiratory problems, and um, that was, from my impression, very challenging as well. So, um, you know, um, so I wish his family well, and his wife the best. So I'm pretty interested in this. They mentioned this on the Wikipedia page, a study of opposites and how they manifest on guitar. So I'd be really interested in seeing that. That was from 2017. So pretty sounds very interesting to me. Yeah, okay. Got a message from Cyan. Funny. There's so many examples of great guitarists having to relearn everything. Yeah, like Pat and Django. Yeah, so Django was involved, I think, in a fire, right? And lost a lot of like maybe most of the function of his um, fretting hand. So yeah, I think he after that could only play with maybe one or two fingers. I'm not sure the details on that, but that is true. And recently, Mike Stern um, took a fall due to some poorly marked or maybe even completely unmarked construction in New York. Took a real bad fall and damaged both of his hands, like the nerves in his hands, and he's been overcoming that. So yeah, absolutely. So here's another little thing, and that I think folks might have fun playing around with. Another little concept to throw out there, and this is I'm getting this kind of from Pat Martino. That's kind of where the source of this is. I mean, I'm kind of taking I took a brief glance at a at his book, one of his books, and sort of tied this into um, the video I saw of him doing that augmented thing. I didn't get that from a book. That was sort of a video that he did. So not sure what the link is, but I'm sure it's out there on YouTube somewhere. But let's do kind of the same thing on diminished sevenths, a similar kind of phenomenon, you might say. So let's see. I think I worked out which key I wanted to use. So let's say we have a F diminished seventh chord. Okay. And I'm playing this in seventh position here. So first finger on third string, seventh fret, second finger on fifth string, um, eighth fret, and third finger on string four, ninth fret, fourth finger on string two, ninth fret. So that's our shape. So the language he uses, particularly for this one, was like a parent group, which I think from what I'm gonna have to read that book more, but um, I think he's saying you could you could apply this to arpeggios or all sorts of things, but this will be our bit of an exercise based on his concept that he was talking about. Very really interesting. So let's say we take this chord and we lower this tone a half step or one fret. see what we get. Okay, so we have a G7 chord in third inversion. Okay, so let's go back to our parent group here, parent chord. Let's take that high note and bump it up a half step. Okay, so now we get B half diminished, second inversion. And you could do this with all sorts of chords. I'm just going to point this one out because it's sort of just similar to the one we just did with the moving one fret or half step, but you don't have to limit yourself to these. So what's the relationship between those two chords before I go on? Well, they're very similar sounds, right? The G7 and the B minor 7 flat 5. You know, if you take first inversion of G7, compare it to this B minor 7 flat 5, it's very similar, and you could think of it as a substitution or however you want to use it. But okay, so that's kind of interesting because we found a relationship with that augmented exercise too. Okay, so how about this one? So take the third string, kind of do the same thing. So if we lower that a half step, we get a first inversion of the C sharp 7. Okay, let's go back to our original voicing here. So if we bump that up a half step, we get the, I'd say E sharp half diminished. You could also think of this as D flat 7 and F half diminished. Okay, so all that from, taking this chord and changing some things around. Let's keep going. And this will be on for replay, so if you want to check this out and try it out, you could always pause the video and stuff. So let's take this and say take this 4 string. Let's lower that a half step. Okay, so we get a B flat 7 and second inversion. There's the B flat. So let's bring back that chord again. F diminished 7. Okay, let's bump this one up. Okay, so we get first inversion of D minor 7 flat 5. Right, so all these kind of end up having the same relation to each other, the third apart there, major third apart. All right, so let's take the lowest note here, we'll bump that down a half step. You get root position E7. And let's go back here. So take this note up a half step. So we get G sharp half diminished. Okay. So that's sort of the same kind of relationship there as well. So that's a pretty cool thing. If you don't have those shapes all together, that might be an accessible way, or a way that's it has a kind of easy logical thing that you can do to it. And you end up with root positions and 3 inversions and two types of chords. And you could just say, "Oh, I just want to work on the dominant seventh right now," and you just say, "Okay, I want to work on dominant seventh." So just take these notes and practice lowering each one a half step, and you've just learned like 4 inversions. Um, so the thing there though is that you're learning all of them in different keys. So be aware of that as well. So you could take some. Oh, I'm glad to hear that, John. Thanks. Let's say you take an arpeggio. You could kind of do the same thing. Take an arpeggio of a diminished chord, and then lower one tone a half step, or just kind of keep playing around with it. Just keep sort of playing. Actually, that gives us kind of a nice voice leading sort of thing, doesn't it? So it was interesting. I was kind of warming up a little bit for today's talk, which I try to usually do. Sometimes I don't, but I was a lot of times I'll do these chromatic kind of exercises just to kind of get the fingers moving and all that. But if you take let's say you use 4 fingers, like all on one string, your lowest and highest note kind of form these um, diminished sort of shapes. So. Um, analyzing giant steps. That ties in perfectly to some applications that this is really good for. So yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, maybe I will do a video analysis on giant steps. I'd love to do that. So this would be particularly helpful. So let's say you do this augmented triad here, G augmented. You could kind of reach those tonalities, right? So if let's say start with B, right? So B, G, and then we get to E flat, right? So yeah, absolutely, those could really help, and then could put kind of fives in front of that. So it really kind of ends on the E flat, but bringing it back up to the B there. That's another real interesting thing that you could work on there too. Is thinking about, that would strengthen, the inversions and things. Maybe think about moving from chord to chord, using inversions and things. Kind of smooth voice leading. Or actually, and then maybe, I'm doing very basic chords there. So be doing some different kinds of shapes, things there as well. Yeah, I will consider doing that. I think that would be a good one. Check out. So that ties into, the key centers of that are all right, and the augmented triad. We have B, E flat, G. Those are kind of the three. And then there's another Coltrane tune called Central Park West, which visits kind of key centers that are not necessarily a major third apart, but have that sort of symmetry. And they're like a minor third apart from one another. So that ties in kind of to the diminished seventh sort of thing as well. All right, everybody. Well, I'm going to hang out for a couple of minutes, and so I'll mention a little more maybe about Pat Martino, but let me know if you have any last minute questions or anything. So it says Martino stated there are elements within an instrument's architecture that initiate a continuous source of valuable information. So yeah, my kind of takeaway from that statement is that you kind of study the instrument, and can kind of basically learn a lot about music from that. Um, like on guitar, we have a lot of contours and shapes, kind of patterns, things like that. So for the guitar, there are two. I'm not sure if there was more in the statement, I'm not sure exactly where that's coming from, but he says the first is major third interval, and second is the minor third interval. So that ties in a little bit to what we were talking about, right? Because major thirds, that's the augmented triad. Minor thirds, that's the diminished seventh arpeggio. So there's a little bit um, of maybe what he's getting at there, and then taking some of those and changing them into maybe major thirds or minor thirds. So this is an interesting statement. I'll have to think about this more. Um, um, I'm just laughing because I'm not totally grasping what he's saying. So I'm not laughing at him necessarily. Once we view their repetitive information, they begin to appear as a series of automatic functions. Okay. So I'll have to do some uh, reflecting on that, but that may tie in to a little bit to what we were talking about. So, all right. Well, I hope everybody has enjoyed this talk. And I hope you can take what you will from it and enjoy it, and hopefully um, can stimulate some of your own insights, or give my own perspective on things to help folks out. All right. You're most welcome, John. Um, thank you for watching today. See everybody in the next one.